Good morning, good afternoon, wherever everyone is in the world. First of all, as Elizabeth said, thank you guys. Thanks everyone for joining the call today. We're really excited to talk about the avocado category. We're going to talk a little bit about Mission Produce. I hope everyone knows a little bit about us, but the point here is to not just learn about Mission, but learn about the category and help educate everyone on really understanding where this fruit comes from, how we handle it, and help everyone here try to grow sales. At the end of the day, we want to help move more cases to more customers. So we're excited to get started here. I'm going to share my presentation. Give me 1 second. Here we are.
Yeah.
All right. Can everyone see?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. And sorry again for the delay. All right. So before we get started, as Elizabeth introduced me, I'm Galen Johnson. I'm Senior Director of Sales for Mission Produce. I'm going to talk a little bit about our team. I'm going to talk about our history. But before I get started, who we are, Mission Produce. So our office is based here in Oxnard, California, where it all began over 40 years ago. And I have a video here with our founder and CEO, Steve Barnard, where he talks a little bit about who we are today. But basically, we have a long history with the category. As I said, it all started back over 40 years ago with growing, packing, and distributing avocados. The industry has come a long way since, as we'll learn over the next few minutes here. But essentially, we have become a global company. So we operate now in dozens of countries. With our sourcing strategy that incorporates, sourcing avocados and mangoes from across the globe to service our international customers. So that's who we are. And now I have a video to show a little bit more about our company. Hopefully this works.
The advantage of Mission Produce is that we're the best in the category. It's a first-class organization. We are globally positioned. We take great care of the product. Quality is critical every step of the process. We give it everything we've got.
We have control over the quality across the entire supply chain network, from the farm all the way until the customer.
We execute better than anybody else. Mission Produce is the world's most advanced avocado network. The operational footprint that Mission executes against allows us to be as close to our customer as possible.
Our sourcing goal is to make sure we supply our customers 100% of the time. Vertical integration has been a key advantage in the industry.
We can control it all the way from the tree to the customer.
Mission is a strategic partner both for our growers and our customers.
We want our customers to discover the Mission advantage. We have aligned our services to what is best
Hey,
for
Galen?
our customers.
Yep.
The video is really choppy
for our
on our end.
Although it's really about.
Sorry about that. I've paused it. I can try to start it up again, or I can just kind of skip it over, I guess, at this point.
I'll leave that up to you. It's just the audio and the visual are not synced.
Okay. Here's what I'm going to do then. I'm going to assume that the video unfortunately isn't working, so I apologize for that. I'll send these out after. I think these are great videos that showcase a little bit about Mission and who we are and what we're about. And so sorry for the delay. On my end, it looks perfect, so I don't know why it's causing that problem. I'm here smiling about how good these videos look, but okay, then we'll move on. So I apologize for that.
Customers
but what that video showcased was a little bit about us and our history. And again, I apologize if it didn't kind of come through the way that I had hoped. But
or maybe you can just talk through it.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see the visual, just the audio is off, but maybe you can just speak to what we're seeing now.
Yeah, exactly. So what that video showcased was a little bit about our packing operation. It showed our ripe rooms. It showed, our global sourcing effort, which I'm highlighting here. So as I've said, it's an international sourcing operation now. We have packing houses in Mexico. You see our operations in South America, all throughout the Central America region, as well as our efforts in Africa and the Middle East to supply our European divisions. And so this is a global effort. And I want to highlight that because a lot of times we focus in on just what happens in the U.S. Of course, it's the most important thing for our business. But avocados and a lot of commodities in the produce space have become a global economy in a way, where if we have fruit coming in from Mexico, that impacts global markets and what fruit is coming in perhaps from Colombia or Peru, or where that fruit is being diverted to. So that all plays into account, and I want everyone to take that into consideration as we go forward. But this slide highlights again our international sourcing efforts, really on the international piece, and then here is where I'm showcasing our facilities across the U.S. So we operate. It says 8. It's technically 9 now. We just launched our Miami operation down in Pompano, which we're really excited about. But these are our distribution centers across the U.S. So essentially, we bring in fruit into our hubs. Our main hub is Laredo, but we also bring in fruit into either Oxnard or Swedesboro, depending on the time of the year. And then we distribute all throughout the U.S. And really what this network is about is being able to ripen and deliver avocados and mangoes same day or next day into all of our customers. We recognize that this is such an important commodity for our customers to have fruit that's ripened and delivered as quickly as possible. So that's what this distribution network is all about here. And I know many of the teams on the calls here might work, be serviced by, let's say, our Swedesboro facility or our Chicago facility. And what we strive for and what we have in place is those facilities, as we get further along, I'm going to talk a little bit about quality, but those facilities know our customers really, really well. They know what our customer specs are. And it allows us to have an extension closer to our customers of our operations and of our customer service. So that's what this distribution network is really all about. All right, I'm going to talk a little bit about avocados now, and this is really the core of the presentation. So as you see here, we have an availability chart. Now, the key point I want to talk about is that there are only certain countries of origin that are approved for U.S. import. And as you see here, and as everyone is familiar with, Mexico is by far the largest country of origin for U.S. import. And we pack in Mexico year round. And as you see, there are peak seasons for each country of origin. Mexico, as an example, has just entered their peak starting in October, which runs through March. And then there's a second bloom, and I'll get into that when we get in the Mexico specific slide. But the general idea here, especially for Mission, talking about, again, our global sourcing and our year-round supply, is we like to have 2 countries of origin minimum within the network at any given time. Now, the reason for that is because, as we know, this is a volatile commodity. Anything could happen, with supply challenges, and we want to be prepared. We know over the 40 years of doing this that it's very important that we're prepared so that we have supply for our customers to keep them, shipping into their business channels year round. And so this availability chart really comes into play, especially during the off season for Mexico, which is typically in the late spring, early summer. And that's when California comes online, and that's when we start looking at other countries of origin, including our operation out of Peru, which we'll get into. And then one note, because I don't think I'm going to talk about it later, but Guatemala is currently in process to be reviewed for U.S. import. We've been working at it for a long time now, and we're very, very close for Guatemala to be approved for U.S. import. The exciting thing about Guatemala is it's a country of origin it's the country that's closest to Mexico, most similar in terms of the growing conditions and things like that. And so when that is approved for U.S. import, we're excited to have a good market share of that and be able to ship Guatemala fruit into our customers. And then a little bit more, just so everyone understands the global aspect. Mexico obviously is the biggest piece of the pie as it relates to avocados within the U.S. But the biggest thing here is as we grow and as the industry continues to mature and evolve, we need to continue to seek other sources to fill demand for U.S. avocado total purchases. And I'm talking here retail, food service, wholesale, et cetera, right? And so this is a diversification strategy. This does, as we see here with other countries becoming a bigger piece of the pie, this does not decrease what we're doing in Mexico. I want to make sure that's crystal clear. This is just additional sources that we can rely on. And what that allows is for more availability out of Mexico, more availability out of California, because we have other sources coming online. So that if we have a customer that really needs Mexican fruit, that's servicing, Mexican restaurants as an example, we'll have more Mexican fruit available because we're supplementing with other countries of origin. And then as we go down the list, you can see, our market share per each COO there. We are the number one importer out of Mexico, which I'm going to get in here soon. And then so on and so forth down the line for all these countries of origin. All right, as I just said, we are the number one importer, out of Mexico. I'm just going to talk a little bit about that. It's huge to our history. It's huge to what makes us unique. And so, essentially, what I want to highlight here is an interesting fact that not a lot of people know. And I know I've talked to some of the groups perhaps that are on the call today already. But one of the things I find the most interesting about Mexican avocados and as it relates to the U.S. is prior to 1997, Mexican avocados were not permitted for import into the U.S. So this was a longstanding issue between California growers not wanting to allow import from Mexico due to pest concerns and also just general concerns related to the market and the economics behind the avocado industry. So that wasn't that long ago, if we think about it. 1997 was the first year, as I said, and it was done by state. States approved them, specific to that state in particular. So the first state to allow importation of Mexican avocados was actually Alaska, as a random factoid there. But since starting in 1997 with Alaska and then going into the next several years, more states approved the import of Mexican avocados, and finally in 2005, California allowed Mexican avocados to be imported into the state of California. So that was 20 years ago. In the past 20 years, we have seen consumption skyrocket on avocados. I think everyone on the call here today probably can testify to that we've seen our business, avocados move from somewhat of a specialty tropical item into more of a staple, and certainly now perhaps a top 5 item for many of us today. And so as consumption has increased, as demand has grown, the industry has changed. So who we are in Mexico, we have 2 packing houses. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that, but we have 2 packing houses. And those were in place prior to the U.S. Allowing import into of Mexican avocados. And that set us up for success because we already had a grower network down in Mexico. We were actually exporting Mexican avocados to Asia and to other countries at the time. And then when the U.S. Opened up, we were primed and ready, and that's kind of how this all started. And so here's a map of Mexico. Some of you may be familiar with where avocados specifically come from in the country of Mexico. But what we see here is the various states that and their production. The first state on the list here is Michoacan. Many of you, I'm sure, are familiar that avocados come from Michoacan. And I just want to highlight how much exact production comes from that state because it's a huge number. As you see, it accounts for, at the top, 72% of Mexican grown avocados. Um, and the next state on the list is Jalisco. So those are the only two states that are highlighted in green on the map because those are the only states that are USDA certified and approved to harvest, pack, and import avocados into the US from Mexico. All the other states that are producing avocados, um, we call that non-certified, and they are allowed. They are not allowed to be imported in the U.S. So most of that production either stays within Mexico or ships. It can be to Canada or export markets, i.e., Europe or Asia. But the most important piece here is that Michoacan has been, since 1997, the only state to be certified for U.S. import. And then within the last 5 or 6 years, Jalisco became certified for U.S. import. And so that means USDA. I talk about USDA and being approved. What that means is that the fields need to be certified, the fields themselves by USDA inspectors. The packing houses where the avocados are being packed, those need to be certified and approved to be packed for U.S. Import. And then finally, every single load of avocados has to be inspected by USDA before it ships. And then again, there's another checkpoint at the border to ensure that it meets all of the USDA requirements for U.S. import. So it's a very regulated industry in that regard. There's a lot of oversight and management and various organizations that are involved as it pertains to this business because it is a multi-million dollar industry. And of course, the most important thing is that the U.S. has a steady supply of avocados coming from this region that are both approved and safe from a food safety and a pest control standpoint. So as we go along, I'm going to talk a little bit about the characteristics of the fruit. Everybody's very familiar, I'm sure, with Mexican avocados and the experience. And as I said, as a reminder, we pack year-round out of Mexico. We have 2 packing houses down there, and they both operate, again, year-round with many, many growers. We work with hundreds and hundreds of growers to meet our needs. One piece of information there is, our grower relationships, again, go back years, decades, perhaps. And so over the years, we have approved and we certify, certain fields and growers to meet our specs and our requirements. But as you see here, this is the timeline for the seasons. So starting kind of late September, early October is when it's called the Normal season, which is the main crop out of Mexico, begins. And that's really the peak of Mexican production. It runs October through, I'd say, April, May timeframe. And that fruit is what we know as the traditional Mexican piece of fruit. I'm going to get in later to the concept of dry matter, but one thing I want to talk about is that at the beginning of the season, we've got younger fruit, we've got lower dry matter, and as the season progresses, that fruit again becomes more mature, starts to become a little bit more darker. We see higher oil content, creamier avocados. And then, by the end of the spring season, we start to transition to what's the off bloom, the Flora Loca crop. And that's, as many of us on the call know, the summer months out of Mexico. And for that period of time, we tend to see a lot, less mature fruit, harder, greener fruit. And that's just the characteristic of that season. Our team is always focused on sourcing, packing, and ripening to everyone's spec. But as I'll show you in a bit, that's when we tend to see a little bit more on the checkerboarding side of things, where avocados aren't ripening as quickly or less uniform in ripening. And that's just the characteristic of the region itself. In general, in Mexico, harvests start at lower elevations and then work their way, higher as the season goes on because that fruit tends to mature a little bit later. And so again, that comes into play when we go down. We have a field team down in Mexico that's constantly out with our growers, reviewing what's available in fields and securing as much fruit as we need for our business. And over time, over the course of a season, obviously conditions change, and we deal with certain climate impacts, such as we've seen rain recently play out in the most recent few months. And so, the most important thing is we want to be front and center with the information, what's happening down in Mexico, to inform our customers, such as you, so that you can have that information and you can inform your sales teams and your customers on what's happening in Mexico. All right, I'm going to keep rolling here. Now, Elizabeth, if there's any questions that are pertinent to the current topic, feel free to call them out, and I can answer those questions as we go along. Okay, thanks. All right, I want to talk about California. California is near and dear to Mission. It's where we all are based. Mission in our corporate team here. We operate a facility here in Oxnard, and it is phenomenal to see. If any of you ever have a chance to come out to Oxnard and see our facility, we'd love to show it off. But essentially, this is our packing house, our main hub for the California season. We will ship California fruit basically starting in February, March, through the end of the season, which really is right now. It just ended at the beginning of October. And we will ship it primarily throughout the West Coast, but we send fruit all throughout the country. There's a demand for California avocados. Some people are partial to California over Mexico or vice versa. But in general, this is a huge part of what makes Mission a success is our California operation. And so what we do here is we have a field team that goes out and sources from all these growers up and down the coast of California. And then we bring fruit here. These are 900-pound bins that you see in front of you. Everything is picked from the tree by hand. They're packed into these bins at the field level. They come into our facility. And then the first thing that we do is we send them into this machine that you see in front of you here. It's called a hydro cooler. This hydro cooler is very important. It allows us to cool the fruit down, which will then allow the most extension of shelf life. We cool the fruit down to cold temperature, 40-degree temperatures. That allows us to then get it into our packing facility and start packing it into the sizing and packs that we need. It's all done via a very high-end system of cameras and packing, these highly engineered systems to pack fruit into the right spec, where we're analyzing every single piece of fruit. We're taking pictures of every single piece of fruit. I have a video, we're not going to play it, but that kind of shows this. And then obviously then ripen and distribute throughout the Western US. So thinking about California, being kind of the origin that a lot of people associate when it comes to avocados, the season starts in the South. It starts in San Diego County, really in the early spring, and then it moves north as we go along, as temperatures start to increase over time. San Diego specifically used to be a bigger player when it came to avocado production. It still is a big player, that county, but we're seeing, based on both challenges and costs associated with water and harvest conditions and things like that, more production is moving more north into Ventura County and Santa Barbara County, closer to where we are. Anyways, the season, as I said, runs February, March, through the end of kind of September, early October. And if anything, we are so close with our growers. We can tell you in a given year, almost to a T, exactly how much harvest is going to come out of California. It's roughly 350 million pounds that are harvested and packed in California each year. Now, I want to contrast that with what comes out of Mexico. Now that we're talking about the difference here, because California at 350 million pounds, primarily in the summer months, Mexico produces between, I'd say, 2.5 to 2.8, 2.9 billion pounds in a given year. So now you can kind of understand the difference in size between the number one origin and then California each year. Both are incredibly important to avocados and to the industry, as I've said. And when the California season is in play, again, our focus is on quality, securing as much fruit as possible, and working really with our growers to help support this industry. We really believe strongly in the California avocado industry, and we want to keep it both considered as a premium fruit during certain times of the year when that crop is really, really strong.
So we have two questions.
Sure.
Going kind of back to Mexico. So first is, since Jalisco is also one of the designated regions for growing Weber blue agave for the production of tequila, what percentage of acreage is dedicated to avocado production in comparison to agave production? Not sure if you would.
That is a very
know that.
technical question that I honestly don't know as it relates to agave. I can tell you that Jalisco is a mature market as it relates to avocado production. It's an established region with lots of very developed growers and businesses that are in Jalisco. So it is becoming a larger part of Mexican production, total avocado production, I would say. And will continue to grow over time because there's a lot of investment happening in Jalisco for avocados.
But Michoacan still being like the main kind of producer
Correct.
at this
Yeah,
point.
Michoacan is going to be and will remain as the highest volume and the most amount of orchards. But over time, we are seeing Jalisco both invest more in the land and certify more. Because remember, each of these orchards have to be certified for U.S. imports. So even though Jalisco is approved, that doesn't mean all of the orchards are approved in Jalisco. So over time, we'll see that continue to increase.
Perfect. The next question is, historically, is there a time of the year when oil content of California grown fruit is higher than Mexican grown fruit?
Absolutely. I'll answer that question now, and then I'm going to talk more about it later. But just to answer that question, yes, absolutely. Towards the end of the California season, which we are in now and over the last couple months, oil content out of California is very high, and certainly higher than that early season Mexican fruit. Yeah. So we're probably seeing dry matter in the 25% range right now out of Mexico. And I'd say, 25 to 27, I'd say. California oil content or dry matter right now is significantly higher in the mid 30s right now, I'd say.
And I'm sorry if you wrote this down or if it's in one of your slides, but what's dry matter? I don't know what that is.
I have a whole slide on dry matter that I'm going to
okay.
go into. Yeah, absolutely. Because we want our customers to know about that. It's a technical term. So I will talk about that as we go along. All right. Good questions, though. And keep them coming, guys. If you have questions, please feel free to write them up, and we'll answer them as we go along. Thanks. All right, I want to talk about Peru. I know a lot of you have seen Peru fruit, have handled Peru fruit, and this is somewhat unique to Mission in the way that we are the number one importer into the U.S. of Peru. I just want to, this will be quick, but I want to touch a little bit on the education side of Peru. We have 10,000 acres, as you see here, in Peru, and you can see kind of what our operation looks like. We've got hills and mountains nearby, beaches not too far from there, and tons and tons of trees that have matured over time. We're seeing this season in particular we saw really good success as it relates to Peru fruit, both the quality of it, the ability, the ripening, the oil content, and things like that. And just as a reminder, this is primarily for retail channels. However, we do want to make sure that we educate our food service customers on Peru fruit, because as it becomes more of the U.S. supply network, I think it'll be important for everyone to understand what makes Peru a great, eating piece of fruit here. And so, um, just looking at the characteristics, the timing of Peru, the season really is that summer, that kind of early to mid summer. Production peaks in terms of arrivals into the U.S. Probably late June, mid July. And during that window is when we see really good tasting Peru. It does take a few weeks for the fruit to come up here. We import all Peru fruit on containers that come up via ocean freight in CA, controlled atmosphere containers that allow the fruit to stay in a stable condition, during transit, to where the fruit is kind of almost in a storage state. And then when we get fruit here, obviously the most important thing with Peru and with all countries of origin, honestly, is the handling. So knowing how to handle this fruit, the focus is always on quality. And as I said, we're seeing really, really strong results, especially this past summer on Peru quality. The season has ended at this point, but again, across the retail segment and within food service and with the wholesale space and the industry as a whole, this was a really strong year for Peru avocados. You can see here just this photo at the top how they're kind of grown at some point on the hillside. It's a different growing climate. It's higher elevation. And as I said, the ability to know the harvesting practice that is required for Peru and the handling is the most important part of Peru fruit. The fruit itself kind of has a different characteristic, as you've seen, and it says here it's a little bit of a bumpier skin on the appearance. The way it ripens, it can be different. Sometimes they don't get as dark green as we see, for Mexican fruit. But as a reminder, color is not an indication of ripeness. We hear that a lot from our customers, that these avocados came in and they're bright green, so they can't be ripe. But not just Peru, but also for Mexican fruit, early season Mexican fruit, or for Flora Loca crop, we do sometimes see brighter pieces of fruit that are ripe, that are perfectly ripe. They just haven't darkened up, darkened as much as we see for that main season Mexican crop.
We do have a question about sizing. So
Sure.
is the avocado size determined by the tree itself or more by growing conditions and sorting? How do you determine what avocados will be used for a 70 count case versus a 48 count case?
That is a great question. I do have a section on sizing. And to answer that though, just real quick, yes, it is just based on what is grown on the trees. We do see, based on timing, there can be some variability, timing of the season, or the most important piece is the climate and growing conditions leading up to that harvest. So if we see a lot of rain in Mexico during the summer, then typically what we'll see is a larger size profile come the fall. So rain is good for size. Rain is not great as it relates to lenticel, which is some of the light spotting that we see on the fruit, which I'm going to talk about later. But yes, to answer that question, sizing is dependent on the trees and the growing conditions. And then I'll talk a little bit about how we pack based on sizing in a little bit. I think we'll cover that question. Okay. And then the last country I do want to talk about real quick, everyone, is Colombia, because as, again, more demand and consumption increases, Colombia has become a major player in the U.S. Avocado market. Their season, the Colombian season, runs somewhat similar to Mexico in terms of having a main principal crop that starts in the fall, runs through kind of the spring. And then there's a little bit of a transition, and then a summer season. The summer season is called the Traviesa crop, and perhaps you've heard that term before. But avocados from Colombia are grown and harvested mostly year round. A lot of production, both from Peru and from Colombia, does go for export into Europe, the European market, as well as Asia and other countries. And so Colombia is an emerging country. Colombia has a very, I would say, similar taste and fruit profile to Mexico. The soil content that the Colombian avocados is grown in is very similar to Mexico. It is higher elevation. And the main focus for Colombia, depending on if you've seen Colombian avocados in your facilities before, but the main focus right now is on quality. There's a lot of investment happening and a lot of oversight and industry recognition of the need for Colombian avocados really to hit that really nice quality that we're looking for here in the U.S. And so, as we go forward, Mission will be involved in that, and we're excited about the future of continuing to grow Colombia as a country of origin. Primarily comes into the East Coast. I imagine if you're on the West Coast, you may or may not have seen Colombian avocados. I've seen it at some retail on the West Coast this past year, but most of this fruit comes into the East, either Port of Philadelphia or Miami, and then gets distributed, throughout the Eastern region. And that is all I have about all the countries of origin. So what I want to talk about now is something that I think is incredibly important, because this is what determines the market. We talk about market, we talk about pricing. Everyone might be aware of the fact that right now, late October 2025, the avocado market is at very low prices, historically low prices, which is great, for a number of reasons, right? We don't want price to be a barrier. And we want everyone to be able to be profitable as it relates to, purchasing and selling avocados and filling your customers' needs. But as we look back, Mission, this is a graph that we publish, and we'll make sure everyone has access to this information. But we look at the weekly arrivals into the U.S. and weekly supply, and spread across all these different countries of origin. So as we've seen over the past 5 weeks, we've been getting, 5-6 weeks and beyond, we've been getting 60 plus million pounds into the US each week. And that is a very healthy supply, and it's very consistent. And that's why we've seen these very flat markets with pricing where it is right now. As we move forward, our expectation is there will continue to be healthy supply, and it will primarily be out of Mexico. As I talked about, we're in the peak Mexican season, and we'll have very few imports coming in from other countries, primarily Colombia, a little bit coming out of Chile. But right now, in general, is a great time to bring more volume in, help promote, help drive promotions for your customers, featuring it on menus, et cetera, to help drive and support, fresh purchases. This is all about fresh avocados, being featured on menus. So we anticipate this fall to be good for supply and headed into the winter as well. I'm gonna kind of speed up. I just realized we're pretty far into this, so I'm gonna go as fast as I can. So please, if there's questions, stop me. I want everyone to know, though, the difference between a grade 1 and a grade 2. We talk about the fact that grade 2s are primarily for food service operators. They typically don't care about the exterior quality of the fruit, especially if it's something that is being done in the back of the kitchen, back of the house. And so the difference between a grade 1, which is, again, primarily for retail, some food service really wants a grade 1, is that up to 8% of the exterior of that piece of fruit can have some defect, some external defect. If more than 8% the exterior has defect, then it's considered a grade 2. That's the only difference. Interior wise, the fruit is no different. And the reason that is because yes, we have visual ways that we can see the inside of the fruit, but really what we're measuring when we decide grade 1 versus grade 2 is that exterior of the piece of fruit. And so up until 20%, or I'm sorry, 80% of the exterior of a piece of fruit can have some level of defect before it's considered a non-grade 2, a cull fruit that doesn't meet USDA standards. But again, just honing in on the fact that that's where grade 2s come from. And the reason that there are defects, which I'm going to talk about, could be anything related to wind, wind burn coming in and affecting the exterior of the fruit, or the tree, fruit rubbing on the trees and things like that, or rain. But again, we get a lot of questions on what is a grade 1, what is a grade 2, and what's the difference? And that is the technical answer for that. We talked about sizing. This primarily comes into play with in the retail world, and the idea that there's certain PLU stickers that can be applied. But basically, 60s and smaller are considered a small. A lot of times we talk about 60s being a medium avocado. 40s and 48s are considered a large, and then 28s, there's not really a lot of 28s, but 32s and 36s are considered jumbos. And as I said earlier, this is just how fruit comes on a tree. I spend a decent amount of time out in the fields here in California. We will see trees that have large, 32 count, 36 count fruit. And then the tree right next to it will have that mixed with perhaps, count and 70 count pieces. In general, we call that the size curve. It's not a black and white where all the trees are producing 36s and all the trees are producing 60s or 70s. It's very much a mix based on when that fruit started to flower and how far along it got in the process. Growers typically like larger fruit. It's higher, pounds per harvest, and that's the yield is really what they're looking for. Because it's the most expensive. Smaller fruit is less expensive in general. So the growers are typically striving for larger fruit. But as we know in food service, we primarily are looking to pack as many 48s, 60s, and 70s as we can. We know those are the sizes that our customers want. And for our team, when we go out and we source from our growers, that's what we're focused on, is securing enough 48, 60s, and 70s to meet our needs. And then this is something just for your sales team to understand, sales teams, I should say, that sizes can be interchanged. Obviously pricing plays a component in this, but really the actual yield of avocados based on size doesn't change too much. Two size 60 avocados are roughly the same as a size 36 avocado if you're putting it, slicing for a sandwich or using in a salad and things like that. And so we like to educate our customers because sometimes there's not enough 70s available. There's not enough 48s available just based on those growing conditions. And so the idea to be flexible with sizing is certainly something that we like to inform the industry about. All right, this is a video on ripening. I know it's going to not really come across in the way that I'd like it to, but I just want to talk a little bit about the idea of ripening. And so, sorry about that. I didn't mean to play it. But Mission, where we, going back years and years, we realized that ripening avocados is how we grow consumption, allowing customers to receive a piece of fruit and it stay in that condition that they want for several days before they use it, but not in a very hard, because hard avocados can stay hard for a long time. We started ripening, again, our distribution centers across the US ripen fruit to our customers' spec. And that's the most important thing is we have a file with our QA team that maintains and manages specifications, ripe specs for all of our customers so that we can deliver those ripe specs year round for our customers. So that's the ranges from what we call a stage 1 all the way to a stage 5. Stage 5 fruit is guac ready. That is fruit that, if you bring it into your cooler, it'll stay as a stage 5 for several days. But anytime that you pull it out of the cooler, it's ready to be used. It's ready to be cut, mashed, etc. Typically, we deliver at a stage 3 or 4. We want our customers to have good shelf life so that they can keep inventory for several days at their distribution center and then get avocados to their customers at the spec that they're looking for. I'm sure I'm missing something because I'm going a little bit quicker here, but if there's any questions, please let me know. I said earlier I'm going to talk about dry matter. Dry matter is really it's a technical measure of the oil content that's in the fruit. Now, as I said, in the early season, we see lower dry matters. To pack and import avocados in the U.S., we have to hit a minimum dry matter for each country of origin, 21%. And as time goes on, that's really where things start. That's the baseline. 21% is very low dry matter, very early season. I would call that just barely, mature enough fruit. As time goes on, the later we go in the season, we'll see that dry matter climb as high as 35% or higher. But really, that range, that scale, as far as good tasting avocados, is in the low 20s, going up to the mid 30s. Higher than mid 30s, once we hit approach 40%, that is very, very high dry matter, very high oil content. We're going to see fruit start to turn extremely quickly, darken, and then at the very end of the season, we actually can see the fruit taste a little bit rancid at times if the dry matter is too high. And that's one thing that we keep a constant eye on in the fields and working with our growers is where's dry matter now? And we want it to be right around that 25 to 30%. If it gets too much higher than that, it can be a problem because shelf life and flavor will be sacrificed. So that's, again, something that we manage and maintain year round. We want to educate our customers. So if you have questions about dry matter, please ask our team. We'd love to talk more about what dry matter we're seeing right now because it does impact ripening. Higher dry matter is shorter ripe cycles and shorter shelf life on the fruit. Lower dry matter is it takes longer for that fruit to ripen. Hopefully I answered that question from earlier.
Yeah. Now I know what dry matter is.
Great. And then this is just a chart, and again, all of this is in our. I'm going to show you at the end of this. Is we have handbooks that talk a lot about avocados and handling and things like that. But storage temps throughout the season is very important. We store fruit slightly colder as the season goes on. The reason is because as that dry matter increases, we want to maintain freshness for as long as possible. And so if I'm looking at Mexico, as the season starts right now, we're storing fruit at 42 degrees. As the dry matter increases going into the winter and into the spring, and certainly at the end of the season in May, that temperature comes down slightly. Most of our customers I know don't have this many temp zones. But if you do have multi-temp zones where you can keep fruit slightly cooler during periods when dry matter is high, then I do recommend that. It'll allow for longer shelf life on the fruit at your facilities. This is a quick shot of the various defects that we see. I talked a little bit about grade 1s and grade 2s. I'm probably going to fly through this pretty quick because Mission doesn't have any problem fruit. All of our fruit is perfect. No, I'm teasing because a lot of this happens at the field level. So for an example, limb rub, as we see, the piece of fruit on the left and the one on the right, for example, this is grade 2 fruit, right? And so limb rub refers to when the fruit is on the trees and it's just either hitting a branch or it's rubbing against another piece of avocado. And over time, you imagine this fruit starts as a small, kind of flowering piece of avocado, and then it becomes bigger. And so if at any point in that cycle, the fruit has any kind of impact from the tree, that's when we see like a limb rub. Thrips is another condition that we see. It's purely cosmetic, but you've probably seen avocados that come across looking like this. It's a very small, as it says here, insect that eats the fruit at the very beginning of the fruit's life cycle. And so it eats, a tiny piece of the fruit when it's small. And then as that fruit gets bigger, that's when you see this kind of become a bigger piece of the fruit. There's nothing wrong with it. There's no concern as it relates to the actual insect themselves. We do see this a lot happen, in California specifically. But again, this is just an external defect on the fruit. As we go along, there's various things that can happen. As this is called ridging. We hear sometimes about ridging. Again, it's somewhat random, but it's purely cosmetic. And then sunburn, if a fruit is exposed to the sun for too long, directly on one spot, that's when we see the fruit kind of can look like that. There's cold damage if fruit is damaged within transit, which I hope none of us have seen, but it can happen, and that's when we start to see, it kind of. I'd say if fruit looks like that and it's younger fruit that looks like that, then that's certainly a sign of cold damage. And then checkerboarding, as I said, is when you see variation in dry matter, lower dry matter, where you've got some darker pieces and some greener pieces. That's at the early part of each season. We want our customers to be informed about this because you might get questions as it relates to what's going on with my avocados. What is this specific defect I'm seeing? And the last one I want to touch on here is lenticel. I want to touch on it now because we've gotten a lot of rain in Mexico over the last few months, and this is a symptom of that rain. It's called lenticel. We don't just see it in avocados. Other fruit can show signs of lenticel. And it's what happens when moisture kind of gets trapped, or at least the skin of the avocado is exposed to moisture during that harvest cycle. And so, as I said, we've seen lenticel. We've seen high levels of rain in the past few months. The good news is once you ripen that fruit and once it probably makes it to your distribution center, the lenticel is very less noticeable. Because the fruit starts to darken and you really can't tell. But certainly at the retail level, if you go to any stores right now, you might see some fruit that has, some greener fruit that has some lenticel spotting. And that's just a characteristic of how much rain we've gotten. We anticipate within the next, I'd say, I don't know, month-ish, we'll probably see the level of lenticel really start to decline as we move to different regions that have, working their way through less levels of rain in Mexico. And then again, just thinking about, we have a quality calendar. We're happy to send this out to your teams so that everyone knows, on the QA side, right? Because the most important thing is for your receivers to know, your inventory team to know, your shippers to know what are the characteristics of the fruit. How do I communicate to our customers what's happening with avocados right now, both in terms of how quickly things are ripening, storage temperatures, and things like that. So all of this will be made available to make sure we can educate everyone on what's going on. But this is essentially a dry matter chart over the year. As we see the color as it changes, and then storage and defects over time.
We have a question. It says,
Yes.
Are flex pack avocado pack sizing becoming more popular or available, especially in number 2 markets? And can they potentially improve contract FOB negotiations from the grower, shipper, packer perspective?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what that refers to for everyone is the idea that a flex pack, I think, is something that started years ago. Customers that can take any size avocado, right? And so interchangeability between sizes. Let's say they're just making guacamole. Yes, it's becoming more popular. I think the need for more consistent food cost at the operator level is certainly a growing concern and a growing topic in the industry. So for our standpoint, that's something that we're always working on to make sure our customers have the best cost based on the availability at that time. So for our standpoint, keep in mind the fruit is the size of the fruit and what comes off the trees takes into account all of the things that I talked about over the course of its life cycle. And yes, we want to be able to provide a good cost into an operator year round. And so if there's a program that someone is looking for, then I suggest that you work with your contracting team on what that looks like, and we'd be happy to talk through more opportunities to get good cost fruit into your customers. I hope that answers the question. All right, I was gonna do a thing on mangoes. We are running out of time. This is a really cool video, I promise. It's about mangoes. But really, I just wanna make sure everyone is aware of that Mission is now shipping mangoes. We have an availability calendar. We are shipping mangoes and sourcing them year round. It's a growing category, and so we can ride and deliver avocados goes on the same truck. And so please, if you have demand, we are working to grow the category within food service. If you have demand, please reach out. We'd be happy to answer questions on supply for mangoes and help you grow your mango programs. So this is just a little bit. We're doing the same thing in terms of the supply as each week and where we're sourcing from and things like that. And the last thing I do want to touch on, guys, real quick, is our team, because our team is really the thing that makes this happen. You all, I think you know Paloma and Kiara and Courtney on our sales team. And as I've said here, we're really here for you. We're here for our customers. We want our customers to win, and we want to help grow your categories profitably. And so, please reach out if you have questions. If we can help support you in any way. And the last, I have Jason Payne here, our Director of Operational Excellence. We're available. If there's questions related to handling, ripening, things like that, we have a team, a whole Ops Excellence team that's here to help, manage the category and improve your experience, your customers' experience, and things like that. So really, we're here to help you win. We want to win with you. And that's the biggest thing that I want to highlight here is we really appreciate everyone for their partnership on this program, and we want to see everyone succeed.
Perfect. If you guys are interested in having Galen share more about their mango program, reach out to me or reach out to your account manager if you guys are interested. And I think we can probably set something up for you to go a little bit more into detail about your mango program. I know that Mike Gorska wanted to make sure that you had the platform to do so. So we might have to do a little part 2 mango edition for
We
you
love it.
guys. Yes, for sure. But thank you to everyone for attending. Stay eyes open on the next month's supplier training, which is going to feature Diarigo. So you should be seeing a meeting planner registration for that. So again, thank you. This will be available on our YouTube channel shortly following the conclusion of this webinar. Galen, thank you so much. I learned so much about avocados.
Great.
I do every time. And so thank you for putting this together. And if you guys want to see those videos that we couldn't get playing, I'm sure they're on your YouTube channel for Mission Produce, so you guys can see some of the packing house stuff that we weren't able to see. So perfect. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.